Welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. I'm very happy to have you guys here. It is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, which means you got to look at my mug. Yes, you do. You got to look at me today. And I have, as I always talk today, if you care about our media, if you want people to know who we are, it's important for you to like, comment, share. Please do that. It matters. People should know that we're out there. People should care that we're out there. So please like, comment, share, get those algorithms going. It does matter. And as always, if you want to help me out, then head on over to my YouTube page, The Sharpe Way. Click for subscribe there so that you can support us. Now, today, I have an amazing guest. I'm so happy today, lucky today, that I have with me someone from Queens, New York, who is running as a Republican in the Congressional District 6 in Queens, the man himself, Tom Zmich. How are you, sir?
Hi, Larry. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Of course. And if people want more information on Tom, head on over to Zmich. That's ZMICH2020.com. I have to ask the question. I know everyone's thinking. I got to ask this question. You are running in Congressional District 6 in Queens. For those of you who don't know, that district is so blue. Last time there was no Republican. And you are running in that district. You got to tell me why.
Well, basically, the Democrat that's there now has ran 4 elections and really no one's ran against her for 4 elections for 8 years. And she's gotten very, very comfortable. She's become a puppet for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer here.
Yep.
Basically, what it is they've made her the vice chair of the DNC, and which pulls no clout actually, because like the issue that just came up, she's all proud of herself for getting $1.6 million for security for synagogues here. That was a $1.5 trillion package. I mean,
hold on 1 second. Someone's asking who this person is. This is Grace Meng, right?
Well, I don't want to mention it. I didn't want to mention the name, but okay. Grace Meng.
Grace Meng, yes.
M-E-N-G.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I got you. That was smart. I mentioned the name. I like that. But somebody cared, so I had to be good.
One of those political things was don't mention your enemy too much.
I like it.
Well, not really enemy, but opponent. We'll say that.
But no, I know what you mean. I feel like in New York City, I think it's not just Congress, but also the city council. I mean, everything is so overwhelmingly Democrat that it's almost like, why bother? But I'm so glad you're out there trying to run. And I tell you, you remind me in a way, and it's a good way, don't be insulted. You remind me of AOC in that you're out there hustling. And most of these people out there, they don't hustle. They just sit back and say, oh, I deserve this seat because it's my turn. And they just take their seat. AOC said you're not going to do that. And you're saying the same thing. You're out there hustling, trying to change. In fact, you were almost late for this because you were at a protest.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were. We were out in Fresh Meadows, which is part of my district. They set up the city during the COVID virus, set up a halfway house for pedophiles and criminals right in the middle of a residential neighborhood in a hotel that's there. And there was $250 million of funding. Because of COVID, no one was really paying attention because they were in their houses and stuff. And they snuck them in there, and they've been there. And then all of a sudden, the neighborhood noticed the crime rate going up. And then it became, a center of attention for people and saying, what's going on? And then they found out that there was a $250 million contract given to the hotel as a halfway so that they can take these people out of Rikers Island. And basically, from what we heard and what we've seen, there's no services being given. They're just being put up for $250 a night, every single one of them, and there's about 100 of them in there.
Right, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you're saying that COVID is actually playing almost cover for people to do a lot of things that would normally be transparent, that all of a sudden now is not transparent.
Yes, they never asked the community anything. They never notified the community. All of the Democrat elected officials from the area, going from city council all the way up, even the community board, everyone is denying they knew anything about it. But I'm thinking now, basically sensibility. a $250 million contract. Someone had to know about this contract.
Sure.
Someone had to know. Some approvals had to be given. There was some red tape involved in getting it done, and somebody greased their palm, and that was the end of it.
Okay? But you
and
know about this. I mean, because you've been a member of a union for decades, so you know how this works in the city, and that's why you're so concerned, right?
Yes. Well, basically, I've worked all my life basically since 1984 with the union, but we started in 1987 when the School Construction Authority first came out, and I've worked on dozens and dozens and dozens of schools all over Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, even Staten Island, the ferry terminal. Our union is all over the city, and we work hard every day. We got a good package, which is good. My college education is limited. I've done construction management classes, which helped me with construction. I became a manager. I was a masonry superintendent for a couple of years with a company that had a contract for 86 schools at the time, and I was taking care of, So
hold on. So you're like a regular New Yorker. You're pro union, pro vet. You were in Army Reserves, correct?
Yes, I was for 8 years. Yes, I signed up 6 and 2. Yes.
You're like, and this is funny. You're like an old school Democrat from like the 70s. Like that's kind of like the way I'm picturing you of that. And then I think you and I were talking about that. Reagan came in and kind of changed that and kind of took over that part of the Democratic Party.
Yes, my family goes back to JFK. Well, I guess I could say I'm a JFK baby because if you go back the 9 months from when I was born, that was right about his assassination. So
there we go.
Somehow or other, who knows? But my family, yes, they've on the website they'll see my grandfather was World War I. My father fought in World War II. My brother fought, and my older brother, 8 years older than me, he fought in Vietnam, and I fought in the first Gulf War. I got called, we were ready to go, and the joke is, they heard I was coming, they surrendered because it was only 100 hours war, and they heard the guys from New York were coming, so we better give up. That's like a standing joke we have.
I like that. So, but I gotta say something else here that seems kind of, I mean, you are openly, obviously, clearly pro-Trump, and there's a lot. Yes, you're wearing a hat, absolutely, and there's a lot of New York Republicans who are kind of running away from Trump. I shouldn't say that's not the right answer. Who are not embracing Trump. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. There's a lot of New York Republicans who aren't embracing Trump. They're kind of like saying, yeah, I'm Republican, but Trump's okay, and they're dodging. But you're not. You're on the Trump train, and I guess the reason why I say that is New York City is not a pro-Trump city. I feel like you're really rolling the dice here. Why?
Well, basically, 2.5 years ago, me and my wife started an organization, like a community grassroots organization called MAGA Queens, Make America Great Queens. We were originally, we hung out with some people up in Manhattan at Trump Tower and stuff and things that were happening there. We did some things, some marches and protest things up there. But then, we both come from Queens, so and no one's was doing anything in Queens. And we held the first Trump rally on September 1st, back in 2018 in Queens. There's a memorial over in Maspeth. It's a huge memorial for all our veterans from the different wars, a 9/11 memorial out in Maspeth on Grand Avenue and 69th Street. And we decided to go ahead with that. We got a permit, which was kind of hard to get in a way because no one ever did a Trump rally in Queens.
Oh, sure.
There was no real Trump rally. So the community affairs offices were kind of like a little skeptical about it.
Sure.
Let me call this, let me call that one, let me find out. So they were fooling around with us up until almost the day of the rally to give us this permit. And then the morning of the permit, one of the officers had gotten a call from the mayor's office to see if there was some way that we can call this off because there was an Antifa threat or something at the time. This was 2 years ago. And I said, no way. There's no way we're cutting this off. And we ended up getting about 200 people came out in the beginning. And then as time went on, but from that start, we've done a lot of things. We've been out protesting. Bernie Sanders was the latest big thing that we did when he came here with AOC at Queensbridge houses. And we talk to the people there. We're very open, because we're all Americans. We're all trying to get along. We're only like the little people, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've been doing, just like we just did now with Black Lives Matter out at this protest, we stood there and talked to them and said, listen, don't you understand? We're just pawns in all of this. They're just making us all pitting the people against each other. Can you imagine if we all got together on the right message and ironed out our differences and went after the people who have that power, who are trying to control everyone? We're telling everybody you have to take a vaccine, you have to stay home, you have to. It's all out of control what they're telling us what to do.
Wow. So no, I love that. I feel like you're actually trying to make a conversation.
Oh yeah.
Yell at somebody, which I think a lot of people are just yelling.
That was the thing. When we had gone to Madison Square Garden when Trump had come to see the fight that night, back in Madison Square Garden back in October. And we found out that they were paid protesters out there. They were getting $50 for the 3 hours to be out there. I talked to them for a little while with their leader guy, and I told them, let's go have coffee and talk about this. I said, because you realize they're just doing this to make the newspapers, make the media, make something happen. We really all need together as Americans. Part of my campaign, the hyphenization of America, the African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, even, white American or whatever they want to call it. In my mind, no, we're going to bring back we're all American. And that's the way it should be, because we all live in the same area, number one. It's not like we're all from different countries. We've all come over and united, like Teddy Roosevelt. We were out at Teddy Roosevelt at that protest there, too, a couple of weeks ago. And Teddy Roosevelt kind of brought things into perspective with what he said. He's saying, basically, if you're going to come to this country, you have to assimilate into here. You have to join our country. You can bring your culture, but you have to, conform to our ways here, because we're the ones that are giving you the freedom through our Constitution, which you don't have in the rest of the world. And like they say now, a lot of things about, America is racist and America is this, America is that. Well, why do so many people want to come here then? Why do so many people want to die trying to cross the river to get here, try to come across the ocean to get here? And that's what leads us to the issue of the human trafficking and the opioid crisis and everything like that.
So let me go to that. I know the opioid crisis is a big deal for you. I know you basically have 5 issues that I see that are important to you: national security, veterans, education, employment, opioids. That's what I see. Am I kind of in the right world there?
Yeah, that's basically it, because there are like 1,000 issues. So we picked the best one. We need the ones. They pick the 5 issues that need the quickest fixing, which would then jumpstart on getting back to fixing everything else, because basically everything is broke. Everything is broke. Every system is broke. The education system, the immigration system. I mean, we can go on the transportation system, the infrastructure system.
My worry is one thing where I see so many politicians fall into a same trap, and that is, while you may want to change the way we fix something versus somebody else, almost always there's a whole lot of money involved. And what I'm worried about is, particularly with COVID, but obviously before that too, lots of debt, lots of problems. Where's the money going to come from to fix all the issues, right? That I guess is one of my biggest worries. Right? We've already got $27 trillion in debt, something like that. 27 trillion in debt. How can anybody, you or anybody, fix the problems with that kind of debt?
Well, what we're looking to do is to put, like I have with my campaign. I have certain people working on certain issues.
Yep.
Okay. And they're putting policy papers together for us. We've recently joined with a landlord organization that's here in Flushing. They have over 5,000 members, and they asked for my help because they're saying, the government, the actual, let's leave out the names, but the actual government is telling the renters don't pay rent, and they haven't paid rent for 6 to 8 months now. And these people are still getting their mortgage bills.
Yep.
I mean, there's some ways about it, but they're still, especially here's the biggest issue is the property tax bill, which came July 1st. Okay. So what ends up happening is our city council, I'll go through it and then track back to what we did. The city council here, which is 48 Democrats in there out of 51, voted to keep the 18% tax interest on the property tax if you don't pay your property tax.
Right.
So basically, the homeowners association is saying, how can, if we don't collect rent, how are we going to be?
Right.
How are we going to pay this? So I'm going to mention his name, Robert Holden, who's a city councilman out in Mass, but he's a conservative guy out there. He put in that we drop it down to like 0.5, drop the interest down to 0.5, 0%. You know, the property tax bill will still be there, but how can we charge them interest? And guess what happened? Those 48 Democrats voted against taking that interest off because they said, you know, quote, really, well, no, the middle class pays the money here. We can't take that away. They have to pay that fine for being late on the interest payments on the tax.
That goes back to what we first said, though. When you have one party, right, it doesn't matter how savvy the one guy might be. If he doesn't follow the party line, right, he's gone. Right.
This is what they've done even up in Albany with Governor Cuomo. We've gone up to Albany with certain issues on pro-life and pro-elderly because of what we all know what happened with Cuomo. We went up there because we went up there to try to, quote, lobby some of the senators and assembly people up there because Governor Cuomo and the Democrats and the socialists are trying to push forth assisted suicide like they have out in Oregon.
But hold on. I want to stay away from state and city stuff. I want to go more national, right? I mean, you're running for Congress. I want to move towards national. And I know anti-socialism is a big also part of your platform.
Yes.
But national security, this one, you're concerned about national security. How do you feel? Does national security in your world mean staying in Iraq, staying in Afghanistan? Does it not mean that? Does it mean keeping bases open? Does it mean shutting them down? Does it mean keeping the FBI, the NSA? What does it mean in your world to have good national security? Or is it only about borders?
Well, basically, a lot of the issues and problems that we have in this country stem from the illegal immigration.
Okay.
Because the more illegals that you have coming across the border, the more services all down the line between the food chain, medical services, housing, all of those issues explode because of that issue. Okay. And we are for, funding the wall. For now, there will be stations, it's not just a plain wall, nobody can come over. There will be port of entry stations in it. See, there's a lot of things that the media doesn't tell anybody, okay? And then people can be processed. But one of the biggest issues that we have now is on the national level and in Congress is there's been 44 or more of the Democrat representatives have gotten behind a bill called the New Way Forward. The New Way Forward, yes. It's the New Way Forward Act, for that matter. And Grace Meng is part of this. What part of it is there's two issues. One is that the illegals that were already deported, okay, through criminal act or whatever, she wants to bring them back on the taxpayer dime and get retried, and then retried specifically for one reason, to find them not guilty or whatever, and then give them amnesty afterwards and citizenship. That's one thing that's part of the act. The other issue is anyone, whosoever it may be, who walks across our southern border or northern border and gets encountered by a NSA person, whatever, whichever it be, Border Patrol or some local police or whatever, if they claim amnesty, that they are not to be detained because they're claiming either political amnesty or religious amnesty. That is totally outrageous, that they don't want anyone to be held in detention centers at all.
So let me go to two parts to this, if I could.
Yeah, there's 5 or more issues in the bill, but those are the two main big issues. So
the reason why I brought it up is because when I saw you national security, I didn't feel like foreign wars was an issue. Your national security, your biggest piece of national security is border security. That's your biggest. That's what you're really about. Is border security.
Yes, because if you notice, back when the COVID crisis first started, they caught about 33 Chinese nationals who tested positive for COVID coming across the border in San Diego or somewhere in Arizona. So right there alone, that's a national security issue because they're talking about, the China virus or the CCP virus or the Wuhan virus or whatever it is. So maybe it was, maybe the conspiracy theories is not for me, but maybe, there's some truth to some of the matter of why it was spreading the way it did. And thank God we have someone with common sense like the president we do have who did shut down the flights and stuff like that, because yes, there would have been millions and millions of people dying from it because it would have spread quicker than if we would have left it up to the Democrats. Like you see, even with Fauci and de Blasio and Pelosi out in Chinatown right in February at the end, before they shut everything, they were allowing everybody to come in. They were condemning the president for shutting down the flights from Europe and from China. I mean, this was a national security issue as far as the border.
So in your world, to be clear, we build a wall with ports of entry along the wall to detain people to make sure we can control our southern border.
Right. If they have valid reason to be entering the country, quote, not illegally, but they would be entering legally. And then we want to simplify the immigration system, right? Because now there's lottery, there's chain migration where one person comes and then 30 people are allowed to come. There's all kinds of crazy there's all kinds of crazy rules that are going on. What we're looking to do is we're following, if someone has read Donald Trump's 4-pillar plan, for the DACA people who are already here. And he also has what he wants to do is just like it was back in the old days when my grandfather came through Ellis Island in, I believe it was 1907. He came here as a shoemaker and he had to prove that he was a shoemaker so he could be employable when he got out off the island after 60 days of quarantine to make sure he wasn't sick and all that. That's the way they did it back then. They had no computers. Right. And he had to prove himself that who he was, what it was, what he was doing there, and then once you're good, they let you out. And basically,
so does that mean you feel that the old Cold War, you and I are Cold Warriors, so the old Cold War idea of I'm fleeing persecution or I'm fleeing a communist country, you think that's old school, that should go away?
Well, right now there's quasi-communist countries. It's not like it was back in the Cold War, because I do remember my heritage is Polish, and I do remember inquiring about, because my grandfather came over 100 years ago, inquiring about family back in Poland and stuff like that. And I remember my aunt and my cousins having a very hard time back in the 70s and the 80s trying to get visas and clearance to actually go to the communist country to go check things out like they wanted to back then, So
yes, I remember there was a big problem traveling to any communist country.
Any at all, right? And they were following you around over there. But now here in my district, District 6, Congressional District 6, here in Queens, which extends from Bayside over almost right to the Brooklyn border in Ridgewood, there's 118,000 people. About 58% of them are like first-line immigrants who've come here from other countries. I have a lot of the old East Bloc country immigrants who are joining with my camp. They support what I'm doing, where I stand about, and they know exactly what I mean when we say our slogan, Take Back America. Because we've been talking about this. Yeah, it's Take Back America, because everybody's like, take it back from who? Well, guess what? Over the last 5 or 8 years, going into 10 years now, the Democrats have been slowly but surely whittling away at our freedoms and implementing a socialist society, and which leads to communism. And these people who I've spoken to from Romania, from the old Yugoslavia, from the old Czechoslovakia, they realize it right away. And now we've extended and we've made very good inroads in the Asian community. They know all about it in the Asian community, in the Chinese community.
Come from China,
they are absolutely out of their minds.
Your district has a lot of Asian people in it.
Right.
Absolutely.
They know firsthand. They know firsthand about what's going on, how it started, how things are going to start, well, especially the East Bloc countries. But the Asians like, oh my God, they tell us we have to do this. They know all about it. So we were trying to.
I get where you're going. I'm with you. That's your national security piece is heavily border security, dealing with illegal immigration is a key part of what you're talking about. I'm with you. I want to go now, if I could, to veterans. Because in my view, they're connected, right? National security also means military forces. You and I are both veterans, right? So now that's, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here. This is more for the audience than for you. Vets are in trouble here, right? We know they are.
Absolutely.
High suicide rate, high depression, trouble finding jobs. Most people may not know this for that, but over 50% of all veterans within the first year either leave or are fired from their job. I mean, there's a lot of problems with veterans.
Combat veterans, yes.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yes.
So what do we do, Thomas? How do we? Everyone's been saying that they love vets for I don't know how many years, but we haven't done a good job of it. How do we change that?
Well, basically, what we're looking to do is try to revamp that system that Donald Trump has already started working on the VA systems, the hospitals. We've been getting some feedback that things are way better than what they were 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But the problem we have, the main issue is we still have this 22 veterans a day suicide thing.
Yep.
And I'm really surprised in a way, and I think we could probably put maybe a task force on it and see what the real underlying issues are, because it should have dropped over the last 2 to 3 years. It should have dropped down to 18. Say, I'm not saying that it's good at all, but
we want to see it go down.
The numbers should have been dropping with all the changes with the VA. So obviously, maybe then there's a health issue thing that maybe we have to focus on.
There was an idea that came out in libertarian circles, and it was an idea that we would somehow give actual veterans either ownership or say in the VA. What do you think about that idea or concept?
Well, that would be pretty good, like an advisory board concept where they would meet, 2 or 3 times a year, where they would, have separate groups of veterans who could be hired by the VA to actually do that, go out into the street and not be like wasting money on like the homeless, like they're doing here in the city with $1.8 billion and there's nothing to show for it. Maybe if we use that kind of, that type of money or allocated for it to actually get something done, because veterans are very motivated people. And if we did hire vets to go out and do it, I'm sure that they would put their nose to the grindstone on it and come up with some real solutions as to what it is. Now, I remember we had gone to Manhattan that same night I was talking about with the Trump fight when he went to go see the MMA fight. We were coming back from the train station. There was a bunch of homeless guys outside, about 5 of them. So I went over to talk to them because at the time I just figured, I was just starting to run back in November. And I went over and told them, I said, how would you like to, what would you think of the idea if we told you that we can give you housing and then, once you start straightening out your life and either through medical or your training or something, that you would gain a little ownership in public housing. Like start earning a piece at a time, like where you would graduate through, where you got a steady job, you've kicked your heroin.
So giving the veterans a chance to have ownership in the public housing.
Ownership in the public housing, and then after a while, say they have, they have to make sure everything's good, to be actually monitoring the situation. After about 5 years, if they really feel good and the psych test and the whole thing that's going on to make sure they get the proper care. After 5 years, they would say get a percentage of the equity in the apartment if they wanted to move to sell it or give it back to the government. In other words, it's public housing to begin with. So
would you want this only for veterans, or do you want this for anybody, or a specific program for veterans?
Basically for all the homeless. But we can start off with the veterans, like you're saying, the libertarian idea of it, because we're open to a lot of suggestions. What we're looking to do with my campaign and my candidacy is bring all of these problems to light to the point where what is the fix? When are we going to fix these issues? We've had these issues for 40 years now, thrown millions and trillions of dollars at issues. And just like now, Mayor de Blasio and Cuomo and all those people, we need more money. Well, if you make the city a sanctuary state where people from other states know that if they come to New York, they're going to get, $250 a night room, they're going to get food stamps. Of course, we're going to have, the homeless problem skyrocketed now from 40,000 up to about 80,000 roughly now in the city. So now with all of these people, who's footing the bill? Now they want the federal government to foot the bill. But the federal government is working on the issue of trying to, get a sanctuary city designation. They're working with their own thing down there right now. But we'll get down there and work on that issue, because we don't think there should be anything called sanctuary city, especially for illegals. But as far as veterans and And the
I get
home,
where you're
and the
going. So
homeless.
so you're heavily worried. You're heavily concerned when it comes to veterans fixing the VA. You're open to veterans being a part, either having ownership or some advisory piece in the VA.
Yes.
And your other concern within the veteran community is the homelessness problem, and you think part of that can be done through public housing.
When we talked to this man over at Madison Square Garden, who was like the leader guy of the group of five there, he says, I can tell all my friends about this. I'll tell all, because they have their homeless their only clique that they have, that everybody knows each other. That's why they're on the street, because they're afraid of the public house, the shelters and
the
all
shelters,
that.
yes.
So they're better off on the street is what they're telling. So I said to them, what if we gave you your own apartment, and maybe you shared it with a friend even if you wanted to, and then put you in training to get a job or training to get apprenticeships or something like that and set you up and maybe address your opioid problem or your heroin problem. You know what I'm saying? And what if we did that? Would you guys be willing to get off the street to do that? Because we're already spending tons and tons and trillions of dollars.
Lots of money's being spent.
It's not working. It's not working. So this type of solution where we could start off, I see the mayor's wife tried to do a really good thing with the drive, but can you imagine if they really did something with that money and they actually accomplished something? To what I understand, really not much got accomplished.
So let me move on to what you just talked about, which is the job training piece, right? This brings me into education. If you ask the average American, they're unhappy with education, right? They either think it's not good enough, or college too expensive, or they're not teaching their kids well enough. People with special needs children are unhappy. There's a lot of unhappiness in education. And as a general rule, the answer has always been the same thing. Throw more money at it, right? That's always been the answer. Throw more money at it. Where do you stand on this?
Well, we need to hold people accountable for it. Okay, we've went out and part of our program that we started out 3 years ago with the Mega Queens thing. We supported the keeping the SHSAT test, the specialized high school testing, because that brings the cream of the crop kids from the schools who are smarter than the other kids, the way to advance themselves and become the physicists, the scientists, the leaders of this country who are top doctors and everything like that. This is what they need. And what the Democrats are trying to do is get rid of specialized high schools. They get rid of charter schools, get rid of the gifted and talented programs that are here in the city. And we've been fighting with them, fighting with the Asian community who's been attacked by de Blasio and Mr. Carranza on this issue, because they hold about 70% of those seats in those specialized high schools.
Yes, specialized high schools are very heavily biased Asians. True.
Yes. Well, can you blame them? They have a very good work ethic. They work all the time. They know what it's like to have a good education, and they want those jobs. It's not like they're being forced. They want those. They know what it's like to work hard. That's what America's all about. That's what Teddy Roosevelt.
Let me play devil's advocate here, right? If I've got a group of kids who are doing very well, that follow what you say, go through the special high school tests, getting the cool high schools, I got a chunk of kids who aren't doing well. They're going to be unhappy parents. They're going to blame you, Tom. They're going to go, Tom's messing up because my kid's not doing well in school. How do we handle the kids who aren't doing well in the current system, right? What's the answer for those kids who aren't going to go to those specialized schools, who just aren't going to do that? Do we have an answer I guess my answer is at a federal level, and that's the harder part, right? Most schooling is done locally. So how do you at a federal level help out a local school to help out the kids who aren't doing as well? Or is it even possible? Am I asking too much?
Well, basically the school system is dictated by the states, actually, right? Every state has their own different school system. But part of the education program that I have is, especially for high school students, we'll backtrack, but we're gonna require that they take civic classes so they can understand how the government actually works and how their community actually works, instead of going out in the community and demanding that they get free college or they get free this or free that. You have to work for it. And instead of rioting and looting to demand what you want, you can be civil about it like Martin Luther King was, and you could, civil disobedience, civilly protest like we did today about out there, to demand that these people understand how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing. Basically,
so you mean like civics classes and government classes like that?
Yes, to put that as one of the priorities. Okay. Because as you remember, they took God out of school. They took the Pledge of Allegiance out of school over the last 40 years or so, whatever it was. So that the children are growing up with no allegiance except to the government, by quote. You know what I'm saying? The government is the new mommy and daddy. Mm-hmm. Understand? It's what they're saying, because you're allowed to freely do what you want. Diversity is the clue, and blah, blah, blah. They're pushing all these agendas, where if you look at Queens and you look at the diversity in Queens already.
The most diverse county, by the way, in the entire country.
The whole world. My district has 164 countries, languages, and 196 if you walk around Queens, you can forget it, every restaurant from around the whole world.
Absolutely true. Yes.
And this is the greatest borough of all in the whole world. And that's what we want to make this again, because for 8 years now, this representative who's been here has done absolutely nothing except help illegals here, just like AOC has been put out. We've gone to their seminars and their town halls, and all they're talking about is hate speech and illegals and making people feel like victims and blah, blah. What happened to the old American way of pulling up your bootstraps, getting a good job, get out and get a good job, work hard for a living, and that's it. Now they're talking about taking away landlords' second homes that they rent out, taking them away, just taking them blatantly, right like that, like they're doing in Barcelona. Telling them if they don't rent it out, if they don't do whatever, the government's going to come in and take those houses away from them.
So let me go back to the education piece, right? My worry, and what I brought up in the past, and I think this is from the federal level, is when you have federal monies helping out local education, they tend to try to find some way of validating the money, right? And usually it's through testing. And the problem with the testing right now is math. I'm sorry, the testing is only English and math. It's not civics. It's not history. It's none of that. It's just math. Are you saying that you would, I'm asking, I don't know what your stance is. Are you saying you would end the testing, change the testing, or how can you break the system right now is about math and English and nothing else?
Well, here's what's so great about it. How can you actually get rid of it when we have the 4th grade and 8th grade minimum testing, the state grade minimum testing, and here in New York City, only 22% of the kids can pass either test.
I know. It's bad.
Who's going to be held accountable? We're looking about holding people accountable. In other words, the system, the way it's built, and the way Carranza and de Blasio, they want to put all the power in de Blasio's hands, where he can dictate and Carranza can dictate where the money's going, where's everything going. They want to get rid of the specialized high school. I mean, the specialized high school is less than 1% of the whole school system, number one. Yep. Why are you going after one little piece of the system when the whole rest of 99.5% of the system is totally failing and not being held accountable for nothing? We were told 2 things. Number one, especially in the colleges, anybody who's conservative and speaks out, the liberals shut them down and they fail. Any liberal professors, if they find out you like this guy, it's all over for you. You can't. You're not. It's like stifling your free speech. That's
well, Cuomo literally said there's no place for conservatives in New York State.
Right. Now, me personally, okay, well, let me get on to the next. That was that. But we were told by high school teachers and actual board of education teachers that teach the grading from 1 to 8 and high school, that there is a mountain of paperwork that they have to fill out if they want to fail a kid or keep him back. Mm-hmm. And none of these teachers, I mean, we're talking a stack of volume about this thick, so that there's no racial discrimination. There's no this. They can't just say the kid doesn't get it. We need to keep him another year. Right. None of these teachers, it's easier for them to sign off Push that kid to the next grade and let it be somebody. Kick the can down the road, which they've been doing for 40 years now. And that's why now we have these kids out there who think they're entitled to something, because all these socialist Democrats are interested in is teaching the kids, not reading and math like the old days, as you call it, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're worried about diversity and LGBTQ and whether your feelings hurt or not. And this is what they're more concerned with. Oh, his feelings are hurt. Well, I remember getting a ball in the face in high school, in gym, and whatever like that. Nobody really, hey, that's right, you brushed it off and you moved on. That was it. Okay, this whole generation is a bunch of snowflakes that are growing up here, demanding stuff when they never even, they haven't even started life yet. Mm-hmm. But they're being indoctrinated by these socialist professors and the whole Democratic Party that they're entitled to something. Like today, housing is a basic right out of this hotel. Okay, it is, but not in a hotel. Not when no services are being offered. If they were put into two-family or townhomes or something, and you were giving them services for drug rehab or services for training, yeah, okay, that would be a housing right, but not putting them up in a hotel and letting them do whatever they want all day.
Let me go to that next one, which is the opioid crisis. Your answer for the opioid crisis, I feel, is more enforcement, which again goes back to my libertarian spider sense. I start feeling, okay, that means more money. That's where am I wrong there? I feel like your answer to opioids is more money. I feel like your education answer is not more money, but I feel like your opioid answer is more money. Am I wrong?
No, basically the same issue. People have to be held accountable because there is programs out there that the president has been working on, issues with the DEA, things that they've been tracking, cartels wise and everything around the world, how the smuggling is done, how it comes in the country and everything like that. Now, we need to go back to the way it used to be, in a way, with the same money, not adding more money, because they have, we're talking about the checkpoints and the points of entry. How have people been bringing it in a shipment, in a container from somewhere, in wheelbarrow, the wheels of the wheelbarrow, it was stuffed inside. There was a woman, there was an actual video of a woman who was coming back from Mexico, okay, and the dog sniffed the car. And then the dog sniffed the car and the woman wouldn't roll down the window. She cracked the window and says, no, I'm not. They say, get out of the car, man, please. Well, why are you pulling me over? Oh, the dog sniffed your car. There's an issue. We're going to have to check your car, which that's what we're paying them to do. We're trying to check the car. She's swearing up and right. She's calling the ACLU. She's calling the Law Society. She's calling everybody against her rights to be stopped and all this stuff. Guess what? 110 pounds of fentanyl in the tires of the car. Okay? So you tell me. The guys are doing their job. The guys are doing it. It's the criminal system that needs to be revamped the correct way. And the criminal system because remember, we have that problem with the opioid, and there's bad fentanyl coming in the country. People are dying from it. I know personally, not the names, but friends who've had their sons and daughters die from it. They never did it in their life, but then one night they were out partying, got a bad batch, and next thing you know, they got a call that the daughter was dead. Down in South Carolina. They were dead. I said, what? She says, yeah, she never did not do. She was out with a friend. Friend said, hey, try some of this. Just one night, a young kid who really wasn't aware. And boom, that was the end of that. So if we let the Border Patrol do their job and not even revamp up the efforts, we let them keep doing what they're doing with the same amount of money, they should be able to accomplish this job. It's the criminal justice system and the loopholes in the system that the criminals latch onto with the defense attorneys where, oh, this wasn't done right, that wasn't done right. Like I told you about that lady who was crying about her First Amendment and her constitutional rights. She didn't have to get out of the car. They ended up smashing the window, pulling her out of the car because they got to a point where what else are you going to do? Which we don't really believe in that with that, the no-knock law or anything like that. We agree with the libertarians that, hey, look, we're not going to have that somebody just stormtrooping into your house. But if there was a known drug location, people are dying in a small town upstate somewhere who who all of a sudden 14 kids died from bad fentanyl that's up there, and they find the guy. Well, guess what? Yeah, I mean, he's going to be held for those 14 murders then. That's basically murder.
All right. So let me then go to the other piece, which is even tougher right now. Again, because of COVID, is you care about the economy. I think we all care about the economy. It's been devastated by the government response to COVID, shutting everything down. You got businesses shut down all over the place, people losing jobs. You talked earlier about landlords not getting rent, right? You talked about that earlier, right? And for many people, that's part of their income, right? They're paying their bills off of rent, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of that happening, economy struggling. How do we get out of this, particularly with COVID? And again, I'm asking a tough one. I'm asking federal level.
Yeah. I'm not a scientist. Okay.
Neither am I.
I don't claim to be like some of our elected officials do. The biggest. What we went and protested up in Albany against Mario Cuomo with his executive order that said that hydroquinone could not be dispensed. Mm-hmm. Okay, we were up there fighting that. And guess what? We have 4 friends that we know of who got prescribed that, and they're fine. So who is Who is Andrew Cuomo? He's not a scientist. He's not a doctor. He's not no one to turn around and say the doctors are, and one of the doctors told us that they'll take my license if I prescribe it to you, if I write this prescription. I said, seriously? He says, no. So that's where we're going. We're going to put it in the real experts' hands, not the political experts' hands. And like I said, sometimes, I guess it would be hit or miss because as we know from Fauci, he's flip-flopping on all the stuff that he did since January. There's no threat, then there's a threat. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, blah, 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 back and forth. Obviously, there needs to be a panel of experts or maybe something like that when something like this does come up and to slowly phase in things, where the federal government maybe should have had a little bit more control over the situation, where people are not being dragged out of church because there was too many people in church and stuff, or things like that, along what has happened during the COVID virus. So,
but I guess where I'm going at is I agree that there were a lot of problems when it came to the response to COVID. I guess I'm asking now, if you win this thing, you're going to have to vote on things like the next bailout package, or, do we extend the $600 Trump dollars, or, do we allow protections for people being sued if they go back to work and get COVID, those types of things. What do you think at a federal level could you do, or maybe encourage others if you don't win, but do if you do win, to kind of help the economy get back to, we're in trouble. Tom, you know this. The economy's in trouble. How are we going to do you have an idea on how we can get out of this damn thing?
Well, we do, but it's not a quick fix. Number one, it's not a $600 a week fix. Okay. That's for sure. Okay. Because people have exploited that even too. We've had a friend of mine say that my daughter don't want to go back to work because she's making more money sitting home. Absolutely. She had no inkling to go back to work. So, I believe Mitch McConnell and the Republicans there have an issue that they brought up with. They want to cut it down to maybe 200 a week or 70%, something like that, of what they want to do, which should have been from the beginning. I don't believe it should have been based on that from the beginning, like 70% of what your salary back from the beginning, not just an overall like the stimulus package. Everybody get to $1,200. It should have been graded out as a percentage.
Got it.
What you were making and your percentage of your salary, because even on regular unemployment and devoid of the COVID virus, the most you can get is $400 a week, which is enough to keep you eating and surviving until you can get yourself back up on your feet. But now by giving someone more money than what they were making is a big issue, which they shouldn't really do again. Maybe they should cut it back down to a percentage of that. But one of the big issues we have is in my district alone, 13% of those businesses that were open back in January are not coming back.
Yeah.
They are just not coming back. It's just plain and simple. People who've been there, 60 years, 70 years, family operation. Sorry, mom died and I just don't want to even be bothered. Mom died of COVID and I don't want to be bothered now. We don't know when we're coming back. We don't know when. So we're better off just pull up the stakes and get out while we can. Okay.
So I guess what I'm hearing you saying is you're not against government giving something, but in your view, it should be less so there's an incentive to go back to work.
It should be a percentage, number one. It should be based on a percentage because, like I said, they do the based on a percentage on regular unemployment anyway. The maximum you can collect, the last time I knew about, was about $425 a week. Okay, which is probably maybe okay for a single person, but you can't have your family on that. But the stimulus check actually, did some good for a lot of people. A lot of people who didn't expect it got it. Okay, but see, people are failing to realize the biggest snafu with this whole thing is this money that they just got for the last 6 months. Next year on your tax return, you're going to get taxed on all of it. Sure. You're going to have to spend. You're going to get a tax bill for $5,000 federal tax, $2,000, $4,000 state tax. These people have no idea. So the best thing to do is try to get as many people back to work and open it up for people to go and make their own choices. Okay, because remember, CVS and the restaurants and all that, people are online 6 feet apart. If that's what we have to do, 6 feet apart for even voting and anything, but that's how we'll have to do it just to keep it going.
But what about the corporate bailouts? I mean, that someone's asking about this. Nick's asking about that. What about corporate bailouts? How do you feel about that? Is that the right answer, the wrong answer, or is there something in the middle? What are you going to vote for if you win?
Definitely, the corporate thing was definitely the wrong answer. I can see that. That was the wrong answer because what ended up happening that we found out with the Small Business Association that was handling it and the banks that were handling it, that money that was put in from that stimulus package, the banks themselves who gave out the loans and gave out the money, they were getting a 5% application kickback fee. Yeah,
there we go.
That's what we found out. And guess what happens with that? If you have a choice to give a guy who's only asking for $10,000, or a guy who's asking for $100,000, or a guy who's asking for $10 million, 10%, ding, 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 ding.
Give it all.
Who am I going to put to the top of the pile? Oh my goodness, I'm going to make 5%, 50 grand for filling this out. We found all of that out. And a lot of my friends who have businesses, put in for the 10,000, they were lucky to get 2,000 out of it. Okay, so that's not the way to go this time. That's for sure. If it ever happens again, or whichever way, because the banks prioritized and made a separate piles, and they picked and choose who got the money, who didn't. And by the time everybody got around to getting any kind of money, most of that package, which was only, if it remind you, was only $33 billion out of that 1 point to 2 point. Whatever,
it was like $2 trillion or whatever it was. Yeah,
it was only $33 billion put in that PPE fund.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so of course, who do you think? I mean, you heard the stories about Harvard giving back $6 million. Give these other companies, give them Chipotle or whatever it was, or some other Shake Shack or somebody giving back the money. Of course, because guess what? Why do you think Nancy Pelosi held off that stimulus package for 12 days? Because they knew what was going to be in it. Just like they knew about the Obamacare years ago. Well, they were vote for it. We know what's in. They let all their friends know. Get ready. Here's an application. Get ready. As soon as we pass this, you better put your money in. So that, you understand? All their corporate donors that gave money to them. Okay, we're out there fishing and depleted that fund. Okay, we know what happened. We know a lot of people who were very smart who figured out exactly why all the little people got screwed through this whole thing, and why there's some of them are still out of work. And why we have to get this economy going back again, which Donald Trump, like I said, he's, in the middle of brokering the deals with China and things like that, and trade deals around the world. What we want to do is, make America great again and bring back the manufacturing. When I grew up, I was in high school. My last year of high school, I used to go to school in the morning and work 7 hours in a metal shop. And then next morning, same thing. Okay, I worked 7 days a week. But then I had 2 jobs at 2 different metal shops. Okay, so I worked with my hands all my life, and then I joined the bricklayers unit. Then I worked with them since I'm 9 years old, actually. Working with the old guy down the block because he needed some help, somebody to bring him a couple of bricks every now and then, mix a little cement from. It was a thing we did back in those days. But nowadays, with all the regulations and everything, you can't do anything.
And they look down on you for doing it. They look down on you for doing it now. If you're a kid who wants to work in a metal shop, they go, "What's wrong with you?" They look down on you now.
No, we got to call a foreigner in to do that. We don't want to do that because they got everybody convinced that everybody has to go to college.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody has to go to college, but guess what? Even in college, after you get out, you're not finding a job because they're calling in the HB1, HB5, HB other from another country to work for the $15 an hour, and they're taking your job anyway, and they're happy to get it because in their country they don't get that. So that's why, like I said, one thing into another, everything is broke. We got to start somewhere with something, and the biggest thing is the immigration with the border security. That'll roll itself downhill because then that'll create more of a vacuum where there's no illegals doing the menial jobs. The menial jobs will open up. The people who are out of work are going to say, all right, maybe I'll take this job at McDonald's then or something. Maybe I have to eat. You know what I'm saying? And then they can start back off. And then as those jobs start coming back, we can implement more systems and more programs, not with more money, using the same stuff and holding people accountable, cutting the waste, cutting the fraud in the welfare systems, in the social security systems, and all of that. If we can put people on that they've already been, that all the money that's already been there, because no matter what, if we go to universal health care, there will never, ever, ever be a balanced budget. Ever.
Never. I agree. Never.
We know this already. We know this for a fact. So unless we make people self-sufficient, and like the libertarians believe in less government, self-sufficient, go forward, Second Amendment rights, protect your property and everything. Unless we go that route, there is no other way to really start solving this problem. But we can start with one thing at a time, like I said, with veterans, with that housing thing that I talked about, and going forward with little things and trying to bring everything to light. Because right now, all you've been hearing for 4 years is what? Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh my God, it's this, it's that. Oh my God, now what happened to somebody milking the system with the Ukraine or something? Somebody's son was in there making a lot of money, $80,000 to $90,000 a month for doing. What was he? He was what, a gas expert? What was he? Wait a minute.
I'm not sure what he was.
About that. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So look, for those of you who
China and around the world, I mean, we paid for all of this.
No, I'm getting you. So let me ask you before we wrap this up, Tom. Is there something that we didn't cover that you want to bring up?
Basically, no. One thing, yes. Okay, yeah, please, you asked me in the beginning, why am I running? Why? What's going on? No one wanted to try to take this mission on.
This is hard mission, Tom. This is hard.
No one. Okay, yes. But guess what? We're looking at it this way, Larry. Okay. David didn't know he could beat Goliath unless he got out on that battlefield that day, right? And we all know what happened with the outcome of that was, right?
Yeah.
But we're out there, we're grassroots. We had an organization called Mega Queens. This is Zmich.com. You can go there and see all our videos where we've been out fighting for the equal rights of the people everywhere. We're not into this pulling down the statue thing. We're not into any of this. We're into preserving America's traditional values, family values, God, family, country, Second Amendment, and America first. That's exactly where we stand. And they can see it on our website with our videos. And we're posting the video from tonight's video out there where Black Lives Matter was out there. What we're talking to them, we told them it's okay, you can protest, but there's no reason for you to be stepping on the flag. There's no reason for you to be making a mockery and burning the flag or doing that. That we're all American. That's where we start at the top. And then after that, there's issues. Why can't we get together on this and talk about it and do it the correct way? In other words, all you're doing by burning the flag is pissing off a lot of veterans and a lot of people who love this country. All right, so you're not going to gain any sympathy, like they say, right? You're going to gain more flies with honey than with vinegar. So that's where we're at as far as bringing the equal equality and everybody's fairness of.
So hold on. Where are those videos? Are they on the Zmich2020.com or a different place?
What's that? We have Facebook, Zmich for Congress.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so Zmich for Congress Facebook page is one, and the other is Zmich2020.com.
Zmich2020.com is our actual website where all the pages that are in there of everything we've been doing, where you can sign up, you can go, you can donate, you can contribute, you can volunteer, because we have numerous people every day. Once they get our message, they're on board, and this train is rolling forward. And like I said, there's going to be a big surprise because it's come this November.
Here we go. You are definitely up against it. It's a very blue district, and you are not playing games. You are trying to hustle up there. Good luck, my friend. Thanks for coming on tonight. I really appreciate the time you gave me. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Again, if you want more information on what Tom is doing, Zmich, that's ZMICH2020.com. Guys, have a great night. I will see you all tomorrow.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.